my nervous system kept telling me something was off about this person, but I didn't have the language for it. I tried to relay that to my family, but they just thought it was nerves and jitters, just it was something new. But something kept telling me something was off about this person. And so I just went through with it. We moved in together.
This is Chocolate and Coffee Break, a compassionate proposition, a space to share stories, bridge divides, and spark meaningful connections. So grab your chocolate, pour your cuppa, and let's break down barriers, one conversation at a time. And now, here's your host, Andrea Pudding.
Welcome to another episode of Chocolate and Coffee Break, a compassionate proposition. And so I hope you've got your cuppa and your chocolate ready, and we're ready to listen to another story that may help us to see the world through somebody else's eyes. And sometimes the deepest struggles aren't about rejecting where we come from, but learning how to stay connected to ourselves inside it. Today, I'm joined by Dr Mini Rattu, and we're having a conversation about culture, identity, intuition, family, healing, and what it means to reclaim your voice without losing your roots. So welcome, Mini.
Thank you so much, Andrea, for having me.
I'm really looking forward to this conversation. I know we're going to have a lot of interesting insights and a lot of fun. So
Yeah,
I like to
too.
start the show with a heart-opening question. And so my question today is, what part of your background or culture are you most grateful for?
Wow. Well, there's a lot, but I think what I'm most grateful for is our community, is our value in community and helping one another, because social connection is a high value of mine personally, and also it's what helps us heal.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think community is one of the greatest things that we can have in our life, is to have a community with us and around us. And in reality, that's what this show is all about, is building those stronger communities.
Yeah.
So I'd love to talk to you today about your life growing up between two different worlds. So you were brought up in America, and you have a background of being Punjabi. So I'd love to know, what was it like growing up between the Punjabi world at home and your American world at school?
Yeah. So I grew up in Northern California. I was born and raised in California. I am a very loving Punjabi family. Punjab is a state in North India. We're less than 2% of India's population. I don't think everyone knows that most of us are diaspora. So I grew up with a lot of love, surrounded by deep connection and community. And it was a lot of family. There was always someone there to support, to nurture, to hug. My parents have a lot of, my dad, there's 9 siblings, and my mom has 5. And all of the siblings were in the Bay Area where I grew up. So especially when my grandparents were around, we'd get together on the weekends, and all of the cousins and aunts and uncles. It was almost like a party every weekend. And so I grew up surrounded by security and love.
Yeah, you must have needed almost like a community hall to have everyone together at all once. It must have been massive.
Yeah. It was great. It was great.
So did you feel fully yourself in both worlds, in the Punjabi world and in the American world at school?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because, my parents were very protective of us and wanting to make sure that we were safe. And so we weren't really allowed to bring our friends home from school. Our friends were at school, but my cousins were my friends, my siblings were my friends. So it did seem like I was living in two different worlds, where at school, had my friends, I had my, speaking English and doing, what we do day to day, living more of an American life. But at home, a lot of cultural roots, cultural traditional values that I grew up with. And, when it comes to how we're living and how we're assimilating and accommodating, that my parents were very protective of our culture. So even English was my second language, even though I was born in the United States. It was taught to us at a very, very early age to keep close to your roots. And so it did almost feel like two worlds colliding at times. But I also didn't miss it because, again, there was just so much love at home. It didn't feel like I was missing something until I got a little bit older in high school. That's when I was trying to ask for more freedom naturally as a teenager, where my friends were allowed to go to the movies and the mall after school, and I wasn't. And so I would start to challenge my parents, push back. So there was some tension at times there. But for the most part, because there was always love at home and we were always supported, that would override any need that I had to live beyond that, right? For my freedoms, or to be more American, if that makes sense.
Mm. Yes, it does. It does. Home is always that safe space for you.
Yes.
So how did your friends at school relate to the difference in, say, they were allowed to go out and you weren't? How did they relate to the Punjabi part of you?
Yeah, they didn't really get it. I remember when I was 15, I got my nose pierced, and that in getting your nose pierced is a very Indian traditional thing to do. And so they were confused that why would your parents let you get your nose pierced and not go out and date? And I was like, well, this is cultural. It's traditional for us to do. This is very different. So there were things that they just didn't understand. And they would tell me, stand up to your parents, or just do what you want to do and they'll come around. But it wasn't fear that made me follow the rules. It was more respect. And I think that's what people didn't completely understand. They thought I wasn't pushing back as much as they were encouraging me to, because I was afraid of my parents. But it wasn't that. We have a lot of respect for our elders and our parents. And so we do what they ask us to do because we respect them, not because we're afraid of them.
Yeah, and that's a really different way of looking at it, because a lot of young people would be feeling that way. They'd be feeling like they've got to do what their parents say, or they'll be punished some way. But for you, it was just out of respect.
Yeah, it was out of respect, and it was known, all the Indian kids, like, this is what we do. So it was a norm in my culture to do what your parents want, or to follow what your aunts, because even aunts and uncles they were like extended parents. So it wasn't no different. Even my cousins are like brothers and sisters. So it was a social norm within my own community. So it didn't feel that off.
Yes.
Yeah.
And how did they feel about your name? So while we call you Mini on the show, I know that your name is Manm. How did they
so
respond?
my full name?
Yeah.
Well, they gave me that name, actually. So my full name is Manmeet. It's again a very Punjabi name. It means friend of the heart. And so at school, everyone knew me as Manmeet. My friends, even if you ask, meet people that went to my high school, they only know me as Manmeet. And that was always really important to me. I loved being different. I never wanted to be like everyone else. And so I didn't tell anyone my name was Mini. Mini is a family name. My dad named me that when I was born, that just as a nickname. So, but that felt more familiar, I guess, calling me Mini, but it was important for me to teach them how to say my name, because to me it was only 2 syllables, and sometimes people see my name and they assume it's too foreign and they can't pronounce it. But I remember as a kid saying, you can pronounce Mississippi, so that's a lot harder to say than my name. If this is 2 syllables, you can say it. So even to this day, people still call me Manmeet if I connect with anyone from my earlier school days.
Yes, and your name is important, so that's a wonderful that you were so proud of that. So let's just jump into a chocolate break, because I'm dying to get into some of this beautiful Lindt chocolate that I have with me.
Yes.
And because I love chocolate and I love Lindt.
Sounds great.
So let's jump in and see the ads, who's sponsoring our show and helping us to keep it going. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment.
When I hit perimenopause, all I heard was doom and decline, until I took a sacred pause and I went searching for women who are radiant after menopause, like Dr. Christiane Northrup, Dr. Vandana Shiva, and the late Dr. Gladys McGarry, still shining at 103. In this book, I share their stories and wisdom and the magic that menopause truly holds. 7 Wonders of Menopause is a sacred reminder. You're not ending, you're returning. Available at independent bookshops in Australia and Amazon around the world.
Did you know that only 30% of speakers are women and that only 13% of panels feature women? In order to change that, there is now a directory at womenspeakers.com.au where you can go and search for a speaker. We also have groups on Facebook and LinkedIn under the name Australian Women Speakers, where you can just go and post about your event and women will respond.
And we're here today with Dr. Mini Rattu, and we're talking about culture and living in between the two worlds of Punjabi and American. Now, I know that in Punjabi that there is some cultural, one of the cultural things is arranged marriages. So what did that mean to you growing up?
Yeah, so we weren't allowed to date. It was always assumed that my marriage would be arranged, and that's how I would get married. That's how most of my cousins were getting married. My parents had an arranged marriage, and so again, that was another social norm in our community. So when I was in my 20s, after I graduated my undergrad degree, my college degree, I went to India with my dad and my sister, and they introduced me to somebody to get married to. And so I didn't know this person. It's not like it was arranged since I was a child. This was done through a match person that it was a mutual friend, a friend of a family friend. So I didn't even really know the matchmaker that well himself. But we all went to India, and so it was again expected that that's how I would get married. I did have a choice to say yes or no. But even when I met this man, we had only about 4 hours, and it was at a big restaurant, and they told us to go sit at a different table. We can talk, but everyone else was like right there. And I was so shy and passive. I was just a really shy kid. And even in high school, I was just super quiet. And so even when I met him, I asked him like 2 questions about what did you study, and what do you want to do if you come to the States? And so he gave his answers, and I immediately said, I'm not sure yet, when I went back to his uncle. And his uncle, put his arm around me and was very convincing, saying, he's going to treat you like a queen. Don't worry, I'll make sure of it. The uncle lived in California as well. So we got married. We had an engagement right there within 2 days. Everything happened so quickly in India. He came to the United States, and we had a big sick wedding. My family is sick. And so we had the wedding here in the United States and moved in with this complete stranger. And my nervous system kept telling me something was off about this person, but I didn't have the language for it. I tried to relay that to my family, but they just thought it was nerves and jitters, it was something new. But something kept telling me something was off about this person. And so I just went through with it. We moved in together. And within that first month, things just started to really shift. You know, his behavior towards me, the way he was speaking to me, putting me down all the time, a lot of emotional abuse and very controlling behaviors. Didn't want any of my friends coming over, acting very strange. You know, if somebody called me, even my own family, he didn't want me to go see my family anymore. Just a lot of controlling behaviors. And I just kept trying to please, you know, like to keep the peace. I said, okay, I'll do this. I won't talk to my friends anymore. Okay, I'll show you my phone bill. We'll go through it together. He would follow me to work. He would just kind of check on me. And then it was never enough. And even though I kept trying to do more and do more, I didn't tell my parents what was happening because I didn't want them to worry. And eventually the emotional abuse became physical and even sexual. And I was ashamed of it. I didn't want to worry my family. But eventually I confided in my sister after she saw a scar on my leg. She asked me what happened and I told her. And then she told my mom what had happened. And my mom was livid. She was so angry. And she called an immediate family meeting. He was crying and saying he didn't mean to. And what I learned later was that he had an antisocial personality disorder, meaning that they're very charming on the outside, a lot of gaslighting. We were trying to turn my own family against me, where I was really questioning myself. You know, it's like, what's real, what's not. I experienced my very first panic attack. And that was so strange to me and my nervous system because, again, I grew up with so much love and so much safety that I didn't ever question what if, you know, when I met this stranger. I never thought, what if he turns out to be abusive or this doesn't work out. I didn't think, what if I get divorced in my 20s? You know, I was 25 at the time, but more like 15 in my head because of my lack of experience, especially in dating and friends. You know, I wasn't out in the community that much. I was always in a safety net. So I just trusted the process, and I love my traditions. I love my values, our cultural values. So that's why I agreed to it, but it ended up being used against me in that way by him. And so it became a very traumatic situation that I experienced that eventually led to depression and PTSD. My parents are actually the ones that got me out of that situation, which is I'm very privileged for, because in our community, divorce, separation is taboo. It's not something that we do. And so, but my mom was like, there's no way you're going back to him, because it was repeated. It kept happening over and over. And I still was afraid of the stigma of divorce. I was like, maybe we need time apart. Because of the last incident, the neighbors had saw what had happened, and so they called the police. He ended up getting arrested, and that's what created that first separation. And that's what gave me time to go. I moved back with my parents and to really reflect on what was happening. But I went through a deep depression and PTSD at the time, that things that I didn't even fully understand what was happening inside of me. What looked functional on the outside was actually survival on the inside, is how I understand it today. And that experience completely changed the direction of my life and ultimately shaped the work that I do today.
Yeah. So very much you weren't listening to your own intuition. When did you start to realize that your intuition had been telling you that all along?
When I had space away from that situation. I think when you're in a trauma situation, when you're in an environment where you're being abused, your intuition gets clouded. And now I know from my work in trauma and stress that you don't have access to those parts of the brain because you're in survival brain at that time. So all of us have intuition, but it's harder to access intuition when we're in a traumatized situation, when the body and the nervous system feel unsafe. And so when I had space away, I had time for quiet and reflection. It gave me a connection back to that. And also through embodied practices, I started practicing yoga and weight training around the same time. And that's what really gave me access to my body again and understanding what I needed at that time and giving me the confidence to do different.
Yeah. So it's a really interesting story about this. I mean, it's not anti arranged marriages, because I know that there is stories of many people who had successful arranged marriages. It's just that in this situation, the cultural expectations for you must have been quite high that you would go against your own intuition to do so.
Right.
So let's jump to another quick chocolate break for me to enjoy some more chocolate and listen to our sponsors, and we'll be back with you with more in a minute.
Introducing 123 Read to Me. We give books to children who don't have books so they can succeed. Help us give away books to supported playgroups, kindergartens, schools, community events. Come and sort books. Donate money. $5 equals one book in the hand of a child. Because just one book a day creates clever, kind and confident kids. 123 Read to Me. If this interests you, let's talk.
You've ticked the boxes: career, commitments, calendar that's more packed than your pantry, but something's still missing. In Compassionate Purpose, Andrea Putting invites you to stop chasing busy and start living with intention. This book is about real fulfillment through small acts of compassion, purpose-driven service, and meaning that lasts. No pressure, no perfection, just purpose with heart. Compassionate Purpose, Discovering a Life of Fulfillment. Search for Andrea Putting on Amazon. We're talking today with Dr Mini Rattu, and we're talking about culture and following your intuition with your culture. So that's something I'd love to know, Mini, is about how do you now look at how did you look at your culture after that, knowing that you had followed your culture into a marriage that wasn't suitable for you? Did that disrupt your feeling about your culture?
It did for a while, and I really appreciate this question because I don't think everyone understands the impact that something like that can have on your understanding and the construct that you have around your culture and who you are and your identity. And so there was a period of time, again, when I had experienced what now I understand as PTSD, that I couldn't even listen to Indian music anymore. I couldn't watch movies. I didn't want to be around anything that reminded me of Punjabi or India. And that was so sad to me now when I think about it, because my entire bedroom growing up would look like a Punjabi museum. All these artifacts, all these things from India. I love elephants. I would collect it. And I just couldn't even stand even the music anymore. It wasn't until, again, later when I started coming back to myself where I realized he is not my entire culture and he doesn't represent all of who we are. He's one person, and I'm also giving my power away if I allow him to take that from me, and so I had to reclaim myself, and I had to remind myself that, who I am, and outside of this person that, at that time, my 20-something years of existence, he is just one blip, that happened in my entire life, and I wasn't going to give that power away anymore. And so I was able to reclaim my culture again today, and I'm a huge representative for my community. I love helping other people, other women in my community, and even in the fitness world, representing Indian women in fitness is another way to reclaim who we are.
Yes. And so what is it that helped you begin trusting yourself again and reclaiming that?
It started with my weight training and yoga. I was doing them at the same time. One thing that happens is, if you're weight training, you have to watch your form and you have to look in the mirror. And I had, your chest up, shoulders back, chin up. I had never stood like that in my entire life, and then I realized how long I had been walking around with my head down. And so I had to look in the mirror also. I never looked at myself in the mirror for that long. So I was working with a trainer, my brother's best friend. My brother is actually the one who brought me to the gym and and got me into this. And he was just telling me what to do. But, I would go back in my car and just start crying. And I realized, I've been walking with my head down. And I think it's so important, again, when it comes to nervous system work, that we can't leave the body out of the picture, because the body knows we're overwhelmed and long before the mind catches up. So before we can rationalize and intellectualize and logically say, yes, I'm exhausted, yes, I'm anxious, yes, I'm overworking, whatever it is, the body is so intelligent, it gives you signals. And these are not personal failures. They're actually very intelligent signals from our body. And that's when I was able to see that. A lot of times people assume slowing down means losing ambition. But what I've seen now clinically is that regulated people make better decisions, they think more clearly, they recover faster, and they sustain success longer. And so my clarity came back, mental clarity. I was able to think more and be more decisive. And now it's like I'm very clear about who I am and what I want.
Yeah, so it's a really important thing as a doctor to be able to recognize that the body is telling us something about our lives. Yeah. What is going on in your life? And I know personally that when I'm overdoing things, my body shouts out at me.
Yeah.
So you find that skill that you've now claimed is just so powerful and I'm sure all of your patients really appreciate that you have that knowledge now and are able to pass that on to help them.
Yeah, exactly.
What parts of your culture that do you now hold even more closely than you did before because of the experiences you've been through?
Oh, wow. I had a new immense amount of gratitude for my family, for my life, and for my freedom. And it's like you grow up and yes, you have your parents, you have your community, and you value them. But my perspective towards life and my community and the values that we grew up with became so much more meaningful to me. And again, community is one of our biggest values in the Sikh traditions. Community and also selfless service, which we call seva. So seva is helping your community, showing up when people are struggling, when there's a natural disaster, there's something happening, that we show up for one another. And so that's what I do in my work today. And that's why it makes it that much more meaningful. That, success also is not just strategy, it's community, it's physiology, and your body is not betraying you. It's always communicating. And so making my body my best friend also, understanding through meditation, through breath work, things that are part of my culture and traditions, I was able to reclaim that and reconnect with these parts of who I am.
And that's powerful. There are also some beautiful traditions and cultural things around, particularly the Punjabi. I've had some dealings with Punjabi, but I recognise that in emergency situations that, for example, the Sikhs, who a lot of them are from Punjabi, are the first to turn up. They're the first to lend a hand. They're the first to provide a meal. And it's so beautiful to see that and to witness that is part of their culture and something for us to learn from.
Yeah.
So every week we have our Brew the Change challenge for people. So this week, instead of shortening and avoiding or changing someone's name because it feels unfamiliar, ask them how to say it properly and learn it. And if you can, ask them also what their name means to them. Because I know, look, when you said the meaning of your name, Manm, how beautiful is that? That is just such a beautiful meaning. And I see that with a lot of Indian names. The meanings of the names are beautiful. So what would it mean again?
It means companion of the heart or mind, because Man means heart and mind together, and Meet is companion.
And absolutely, that's what you are. So very quickly, Mini, where can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, so you can connect with me online at drmini.co, drmini.co. or on Instagram, it's Dr Mini Kaur, dr.mini_kaur.
Thanks, Minnie. It's been a pleasure having you on the show. So until next time, let love be the loudest voice.
That's great. Thank you.